Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today here Beyond Compliance for what I'll call almost October 2020. We've got a great discussion today. We're talking through 5 ways to justify that QMS investment. There are more, but we're going to focus on 5. There's a lot of great reasons to really get sharper around quality management systems. So this is Aaron Bolshaw, VP of Marketing for SafetyChain and the moderator for Beyond Compliance. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's an ongoing monthly industry update for food, beverage, CPG facility, like the operators, right? The QA, safety and compliance professionals. And what we do is we partner with thought leaders across the sectors, labs, equipment manufacturers, consultants, many, many more. Simple goal is to bring insights from around the market that shape the way we grow our businesses, deliver quality products to our customers, and safeguard our brands. So SafetyChain does sponsor this ongoing webinar. So for those of you that aren't familiar with who we are the #1 plant management platform that improves yield, maximizes productivity, and ensures compliance for food, beverage, and CPG companies. Trusted by over 1,500 facilities, we are the only complete solution, for production, think OEE, SPC, also food safety and quality, that QMS side, and also supplier compliance and corporate compliance. So with that, we're scheduled for a brisk hour today, and I have to say, very timely topic, as many of us head directly into the 2021 planning season here. And some of you may have already started that process, let's be honest. So first up, just everyone should understand, you're on mute. We can only hear presenters at this point, but we do want to get your input. So use that webinar console over on your right to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll save time towards the end to get to as many as we can. And if you're having any audio issues, best thing to do is try and call in using the phone. That often resolves that issue, but you can also chat in if you're having problems. We'll try and help you out that way. And to answer everyone's perennial question, yes, everyone here will also get the link to the recording here and the slides to share and study and have and hold and cherish. So with that, I'd like to introduce our esteemed panelists today. Tracy Ouellette is the Senior Business Analyst for Norima Consulting, and she's uniquely qualified to speak on today's topic, having been through many of those very budgetary planning discussions around QMS investments. In those meetings, discussing how do we, even look at ROI. Is this an investment worth making? What are we doing with paper, et cetera, et cetera. She's provided food, beverage, and CPG manufacturing very innovative solutions to business problems using technology and software. Former business analyst, actually, with High Life, which is one of Canada's leading pork producers and exporters. Very successful, a very great company up there. Anyway, Tracy, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, as am I. Good. Well, listen, Tracy, if I just kind of take a look, quality, safety, and compliance systems in general has really been brought into the light more this year than I think in any other in recent memory, just because of what's going on. And when SafetyChain begins chatting about solutions with our clients, they usually have maybe 1, 2, maybe even 3 things they'd like to improve in their plans. They've got this one initiative, right? But there's a lot more to that, which you will cover today. But why don't you start out, if you would, please, Tracy, give us the detail about Norima. Tell us more about Norima Consulting.
Absolutely. So Norima's corporate office is based out of here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is, I'm located just outside of Winnipeg. But we do have, we are across North America and also located in Manila as well. We have a full suite of project managers, developers, BAs, and we're here to be advisors to businesses to solve business problems using technology. And so we want to ensure that we find the right solution for what you need and engage the right people to make sure that we can build that correct solution for all of your business needs.
Very good. And it's also worth mentioning, Norima is a trusted partner, of course, of SafetyChain as well. So, and we've worked, Tracy, with you and your consulting firm deeply on many issues. So we're really happy to have you aboard. Why don't you start out by kind of going through what the high level benefits are? What is this 5 ways? We're giving everybody the thing right away. Usually you're supposed to save this to the end, right, Tracy? No. No, why don't you walk us through these 5 key points, these justifications, and get into the heart of it?
So absolutely. So when we're looking at vetting a system and looking at solving a business problem, we're going to look at what it is that the business, what the objective is for the business. So through this presentation today, we're going to talk about different ways that we can quantify or find the value in bringing in a QMS system. And so the 5 points that we're going to discuss are going to be number 1, reducing operational costs. So that's always at the forefront of many businesses where we're talking about, I want it to cost less to do what my company does. Number 2 will be increased productivity. And so I want to have more output of product by my current staff and my current infrastructure. So how can we support doing that and increase what is number 3, increasing profitability. So if we can increase productivity, then the likely offset to that is we're going to increase profitability because we can produce more product, or by reducing operational costs, have increased our margins. We also are going to look at number 4, streamlining compliance. So what are the benefits of streamlining compliance and how can we quantify streamlining compliance? And then of course, number 5 is customer satisfaction, because happy customers spend more money. Oh, sorry, that was me learning technology. There we go. So how do we reduce operational costs? So let's talk about a few different ways where operational costs are at the forefront. So process automation, taking away the manual tasks that users are going to be doing, reducing rework and waste, eliminating paper, reducing downtime. So all of these items on the operational side will increase efficiency and productivity, and increase your compliance with the FDA, FSMA, all of your programming, higher ability to stay within your spec conformance, and adding visibility to your processes really is pivotal to reducing the operational cost. Data integrity and visibility to that data in a timely fashion will allow you to make better operational decisions. So let's break that down a little further in process automation. So how does process automation help? So like I said earlier, we're eliminating costly repetitive tasks. So things like having to validate that a form is complete, that it's legible, and rekeying some of that information. Also ties into reducing the human error. So if we're having to manually manage all of those repetitive tasks, then we're putting that data at risk of human error and are not being very efficient, and we're reducing the data integrity. So by adding process automation using a QMS system, we can eliminate those repetitive tasks and eliminate, for the most part, the human error by adding dependencies in your forms and restrictions, and reducing the risk of people putting in the wrong information or inaccurate information that's not within tolerances. And the definite output of that is the data integrity. If you can rely on that data coming in because it's consistent and it's validated, then you can generate dynamic dashboards and stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later. Eliminating the costly repetitive tasks also allows us to reassign people to value-added activities. What's a value-added activity? Well, someone who was doing the data entry or filing of all of those forms that you're filling out that are all over your plant, or chasing down lost documents, can now be put to good use in doing trend analysis, doing training of quality inspections, all of the stuff that will provide better value to the company. Standardization is a huge issue in with a lot of the clients that I work with. If you do process automation, you can standardize things by selection in fields when you're completing your forms, or document management with version control allows us to ensure that the correct SOP is tied to that form at all times, and we don't have to worry about somebody working with a stale document, which can then turn into non-compliances or failures to do something appropriately. The hidden cost of paper. So when I'm building a lot of ROIs for digital transformation, and this isn't QMS specific, this is digital transformation projects in general, we don't realize the cost of paper to businesses. And so one of the things that I've done historically is I've actually gone in and done a calculation on how much is paper costing this business area. And so I did some research and have found that the total cost of use for one $50 box of paper is $1,550. So that's printing on it, that's filing it, that's managing it. It's $1,550 a box every time you buy a box of paper. $2,000 to maintain a 4-drawer cabinet. So for all of you out there that have all of these rooms full of these 4-drawer cabinets that are filled to the brim with file folders of paper, are costing you on average $2,000 annually to maintain. The cost to file a document is approximately $20. So if you think every time you have a piece of paper, so let's say you're filling out 200-300 forms a day, now every time you're going to file that, it's costing you $20 in labor and in storage and in printing costs to be able to take that file and file it away. What I found really interesting when presenting this, and I leverage it often, is the $120 per document cost for missing or misfiled documents. So if you think of all of the times that not just when you're within an audit, but you are doing trace back on anything, or wanting to reference back to an event or an inspection that was completed, if that document has been misfiled or missing, it's costing you $120, and it costs you $220 to reproduce that missing document. Now, individually, these don't seem like a lot, but if you look at the entire business unit, especially in QA inspections, where I know there's a lot of paper flying around in that area, these costs can add up very quickly. And my last implementation, I actually had an expected ROI of approximately 12 to 18 months in implementation, and actually achieved it in 3 months, strictly on the cost of paper and eliminating the paper.
That's amazing. and it never ceases to, I think, slip my mind when we talk to customers. You talk about that value-added activity, right? What are they really getting out of this? Not just the save time from running around looking for things, but it is really that peace of mind knowing you're going to be able to work on more, business central things like training or yield, and really getting to work on the business more instead of honestly being frustrated looking for stuff, because that's a very frustrating task in itself, Tracy.
Absolutely. There's a lot of wasted effort there. And if you're going to be paying somebody to be there, you would rather get something out of them while they're there, not chasing something around, right? Absolutely. So rework, waste, and downtime costs. So these are large areas from a production standpoint that you can calculate how the improvement can be done by implementing a QMS system. I put these calculated costs as examples. These don't apply to every manufacturing industry, obviously. They would be tweaked. But for example, downtime is fairly straightforward. It's dollars per minute times minutes down. how you calculate it, if you calculate it at a line level or an individual piece of equipment level. That could be detailed specific to your business case. Rework is material plus labor plus overhead associated with production losses plus packaging. A lot of the times we forget about the packaging cost and just kind of write it off. But if you go back and actually do the investigation on how much that packaging is costing you every time you're doing rework, you'll be surprised at how much wasted or lost packaging costs are there. And then waste, cost per unit times units scrapped. And so that's a huge calculation. And then that falls nicely into my example on the next page. And so just to be able to show and to the audience here how we can calculate and prove an ROI on something, I have an example of a client who, this client is a large protein production company that specialize in a finished good. And so company X averages about 6,000 pounds of product daily of waste. And so 6,000 pounds a day are being wasted, and it's directly related to the rework that is having to happen. So of the 250,000 pounds that they do a day, about 6,000 pounds are wasted. Now that doesn't seem a lot. It is only about 2.5% of the total production, but if we can reduce that waste by 50% by increasing our reaction time and reduction in rework, causing the wasted quantity by 50%, so that in tune is $6,300 a day. But if you annualize that, that's $1.6 million in your pocket. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot when you think about it. Oh, it's 2.5% of my production. But $1.6 million is a large number for a company as far as lost potential profits.
Yeah, and Tracy, I like this example, the way you really talk about reaction time, right? This reaction time, and you talked about data integrity a little bit earlier, but it's really speed to knowledge, right? The data has to be actionable quickly. How fast can you find a problem with that downtime? How fast can you ultimately remediate that problem? That really is a area of investment potential for customers producers, because this is true. I mean, the faster you can get to fixing it, the faster you get back. And no one likes that feeling of saying, oh, wow, that huge run that just went by was waste, or they have to rework, right? You want to be able to stop it, catch it, fix it, and move on.
Absolutely, and that reaction time is pivotal. If you can collect that data, display it, or notify the right people, and actually start solving the problem while the product's still on the line, then you eliminate that rework, right? And then now you're eliminating that waste. And this isn't taking into consideration the packaging loss. This is strictly at the product level. And so I did not bring into the packaging loss into this calculation. So that annual savings by reducing the waste by 50% is strictly on the product, not on the other labor and other areas that we could calculate off of. So how do we increase productivity? So productivity, it's all about displaying the data in a dynamically, so real-time data is pivotal, and then being able to display it and in a useful way for the production floor and operations to be able to use it. An integrated supply chain is connecting all of your systems, and alerts and notifications is updating you immediately of non-compliances. So let's talk about real-time data a little more in depth. So when we talk about real-time data, that's all about collecting and aggregating sensor data so that we can eliminate the delay, posting and refreshing the data, and automating reports and dashboards. It also includes collecting form data and taking that information. You can also take it and do other calculations on the back end and display it. And some of the things that allow you to be dynamic on your operational floor is bringing visibility into the status of your production. So that real-time data can then be used to calculate the first-time correct percentage or your pass rate percentage for quality. So you can have a snapshot of right here, right now, how are we doing? Are we being successful? Are we failing in certain areas? Are we failing our quality checks? Why? And then now we can investigate, why are we failing our quality checks, and can we correct it now so that we don't have to do any of that wasteful rework and loss of product. Integrated supply chain is taking your existing legacy systems and other data collection areas and having them all work together. So this allows the elimination of duplicate entry. So if you have a SCADA system that's collecting that sensor data or thermometer data, you can have that integrate directly into your QMS system, and that device data can be sent directly into verification checks. It can also link into your MES system, so you can provide batch level details from your production straight into your verification so that you eliminate that data entry, and you also have that traceback capability that you know that that data is for that batch record, and all of the checks are all tied together, and now you've got a streamlined traceback. Alerts and notifications. So taking that data, that real-time data, allows us to push and alert escalation of non-compliances for immediate attention. Isn't it great if you don't have to wait for your person doing the inspections on the floor to run over or radio the supervisor or the manager to notify them of a non-compliance or of an issue? Now we can have automated escalation of these non-compliances, and they can have the embedded pictures or data collected in the alert for review. So then you can prioritize the priority of identifying and addressing those issues based on that information. One of the biggest things that I've found is visualization of data for the production floor. It's huge for the production supervisors or the quality techs or the quality supervisors that are out on your operational floor. And if you have, you can have put TVs on your floor or some kind of visualization where you can now see the current state of your floor's production activities. And so allowing them the visibility to and the information to be able to make decisions live on the line during production allows you to be proactive to do things such as maybe you need to reduce the line speed on the line, and that way you'll be able to ensure that there's less quality issues by slowing the line down and being able to address the product as it's moving through the line. Dynamic dashboards, C-suite and upper management really like the dynamic dashboards where you can actually see your production data coming in, and we can visualize where our compliance is, where we're at as far as where we want it to be, so planned versus actual for production, and how are we doing as far as our quality checks are concerned, and meeting the expectations for what we're going to be pushing out of our production plant for that day.
Yeah, and I think just one added note, Tracy, about the alerts and notifications, and this is, you know, things can get overwhelming, right? You want to be able to have a flexible system that can, you know, by role, assign things to the right people. You don't want these alerts going out to everybody and making everyone think about it. You really just want to have better control and make it mobile, right? That's the thing. Like if you're running around, you're not in front of a computer that gives you this dashboard, you should be able to look at these things on mobile so you can make that decision quicker. Again, that goes back to your reaction time, right? How can you make alerts and notifications not be noise, make it a signal, make it a strong signal for the right people. And now what you have is not just actionable data, which we always talk about. it gives you the reason to act, right? So it's taking that concept, moving it a little bit forward, and making sure it's not noise, it's signal.
Absolutely. It goes back to the whole, I just send it to me via email, just send it to me via email. And then, like you said, it does just become noise. So you want to make sure that those alerts are directed to the right people that will value the information and do something with it.
Absolutely.
So how do we increase profitability? Well, rolling up all of the things that we've previously talked about directly correlate into increasing our profitability. So reducing the operational cost will increase our profitability, because if it costs us less to produce the product, then we increase our margins. Higher quality is very straightforward. If we produce a higher consistent quality of product, we can increase our sales price, or we can increase our new customer base. So if we have a consistent quality that we can trace back and it is relied and trusted, then we can increase our sales price in our market share area, or expand to new customers, because it's always valuable to have that quality product with that consistency that it's trusted. We can also increase throughput. So if you find that you can react faster and don't have to do rework and are reducing your waste, you're going to have more product to sell. So more product to sell equals more money in the pocket.
All right, that brings us to a quick poll. We just wanted to take everyone's pulse very quickly across these measures. So get your typing fingers out. You're going to be asked a question here in just a quick second. Wanted to ask you, so what best describes your plant's primary objective, right? And so I'm going to give a second. That'll jump up on everyone's screen really quick. What best describes your plant's primary objective? 1, reduce operational cost. 2, increase productivity, increase profitability, streamline compliance, or customer satisfaction. And you can pick one or more here. So here's the deal. You know, at the top of this presentation, Tracy, we were talking about some people have 1, 2, or 3. Maybe you have all 5, right? While people are taking this, we'll keep it on the screen for just a little bit longer as people are voting. What, you know, in your professional opinion, can you be focusing on too much? Do you want to chisel this down when you do presentations and start to discuss the investment value? Is there any approach that you'd recommend?
I think there's definitely like a snowball effect of a lot of these things. I think if you find an area where, for example, reducing operational cost, then if there's an area specifically where you wanted to reduce rework or you wanted to reduce downtime, all of those things will increase through just through like attrition and through lean manufacturing practices will increase your productivity and increase profitability. And so I think if you focus on specifically what's going on in your plant, then I think the end result, you'll have all of them.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good. Here's what we found out, Tracy. A lot of stuff going on. The compliance, I guess, for me is a shocker here. I really thought the operational costs would have been, I think, the bigger thing here. But any thoughts on what you're seeing on the results?
Well, I can't see exactly who's on the call, so I couldn't tell you whether I would have an opinion ahead of time. So if there was a bunch of CFOs in there, I would assume that increased profitability and reduced operational cost would have been the highest ones. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what our customer base is here on the call. Streamlining
Sure.
compliance it doesn't surprise me from an operational standpoint. It is cumbersome. It is audits and managing the documents and managing the programs is something that is on everybody's forefront. It does cost operationally and can reduce your productivity if it's not done well. And so I can completely see from this poll that obviously that people also support that, and it's complex.
Yeah, I'd say one last thing: the customer satisfaction. We haven't gotten into that yet. We're going to, and ultimately, I think so it'll take me just a quick second to get that back on the screen for everyone. But ultimately, what we have is a quick chat coming up about what we think is, well, how we link the customer satisfaction. I think there's a bigger piece to that that people aren't aware of. Let me get us caught back up here. Apologies. But the customer satisfaction you're going to go through in just a second. We haven't gotten into that. I think had we done this poll later, right, Tracy, we may actually have seen a difference in people's opinion maybe of that customer satisfaction. But I've got us caught up now. We're going to talk a little, you're going to talk a little bit about that compliance that you were just chatting.
Correct. So streamlining compliance obviously is very important to this group. And I don't know what areas where we're struggling in streamlining compliance. I'm sure everybody could probably bring up 4 or 5 use cases as to why they need to streamline compliance. But in a lot of cases, it's eliminating the lost records. Losing information or losing checks or losing SOP is quite frequent and cumbersome when managing the compliance, ensuring that people have the right information to make the right decisions, to execute on the correct tasks, is difficult in a lot of production floors. And streamlining compliance and using a QMS system where you always have the right document at the right time is key. Also linking those back to SQF programs or HACCP programs or any of the other food safety programs that are out there is also key. One of the biggest things that I've found, if you're able to keep them linked together, then you're more likely to not lose stuff. And so, or forget things, and you're better prepared to address when there are any issues. And then having audit-ready reports is not necessarily on top of people's minds, but there is definitely something to be said to be able to have the ability to have audit-ready reports for those unannounced audits or auditors coming in, or the need to have to do traceback, and then you can do those internal audits and be able to verify your compliances and ensure that your processes are meeting all of your requirements for your food safety programs. So customer satisfaction drives revenue. So at the end of the day, everybody's here, whether you're a CPG or packaging manufacturing or food manufacturing or proteins. It's all about customer satisfaction, because if nobody's buying your product, then you're not going to do very good business. And so if we can keep the customer happy, we can make sure that they are repeat customers, that at the end consumer is happy with the quality of the product and that it's consistent and it's reliable, you're going to be able to increase your profit margins and you're going to increase your customer base. And so that at the end of the day is really what we're all targeting for. So we want our shipments out on time. We want to make sure that our product is looking and tasting consistent or feeling consistent if it's on the consumer packaged goods side, and want to ensure that at the end of the day, the customer's happy.
That's true. No, not happy. No revenue. No one starts to, and it's funny too. You know, sometimes we overcomplicate the customer satisfaction part, and we have some really good questions coming in, Tracy. So this is fantastic. But you know, one of the things that's often overlooked is the simple fact that the quality parts that make sure everything is consistent, that your flavors are right, your ingredients are coming from your suppliers, are in great shape, and they're going into the production. At the end of the day, I'm going to be the guy myself that says these weren't good to other people. These didn't taste right. Or even worse, if I've had something before, liked it, loved it, shared it with somebody, said, hey, these chicken nuggets or this soft serve action, whatever it is that I grabbed off the shelf, was good and then it wasn't, I'm not repurchasing. It's that simple. It's done. We have no, as consumers, we have very, very low tolerances for that variability in taste.
Absolutely. And our customers are willing to pay for the consistency and the quality. You can see it out there that there's a market for the low level quality, and people know that you get what you pay for, right? And so if you can provide that consistency of the quality on a regular basis, then your customers are going to come back and your customer base is going to expand.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right. So we got some questions here. Another reminder as we start digging into these questions, please submit them now on your right. We'll get into that. So the first question coming in, and this is my fault, Tracy. I was supposed to add that note. There is a reference for those costs of paper. What we'll do is, and thanks for pointing that out, Michael, we will add that to the slide deck before we share it out. But there is a reference there. We aren't pulling those numbers out of thin air. So my apologies there. And I would even say I've done this with customers before in preparation for a customer success story, right? So we worked with a poultry manufacturing facility down in the South, and we just got to talking, and the plant manager, Eric, was great. He's just saying, I asked him, well, how long are you walking around looking for records? Right? He sounded so fresh. He's like, well, before we put a solution in place, he or someone else on his team, an hour and a half a day. It doesn't take a brilliant, mathematician to figure out, okay, what's the base cost of your labor in that area, average it out, take it times the buck, an hour and a half a day and roll it and annualize. And what you're looking at is, $14,000 to $20,000 instantly. And I call that soft cost. But it's really frustrating cost because if you're walking around, Tracy, and you're looking for that thing, or you're trying to check to make sure that all of the quality check happened on that one form, right? You just know somewhere deep down it's not as productive. It's not that productive work that you want to be doing. So
absolutely.
Another question coming in. From Paul, he says, isn't it just as hard to find a mislabeled, misfiled electronic document? So this I can kind of take on the electronic part. I wanted to give you a chance at sort of what you think of the electronic records, and is it just as hard to find something electronically?
Most technologies, and I can speak for SafetyChain specifically, but most technologies have a search function, and it's usually a wide range search function. And so for the most part, in a lot of these solutions, finding the document is a lot faster electronically than it would be the paper document. And then you can also sort and filter through if you thought you were looking for document X, but you actually needed document Y. It allows that quicker turnaround to ensure that you didn't waste all of that effort looking in one cabinet when you should have been looking in the other cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to point out there are massive differences in the architecture of some of these solutions, Paul, that really make a big difference. Some are going to connect those records, or what we call objects, right? If they're connected objects, and then you're going to be able to search very quickly through your entire filing cabinet. So think about in the palm of your hand, you've got a warehouse full of those filing cabinets. Each one of them represents maybe a different program. Maybe one's HACCP, one's VRC, one's whatever. You're going to be able to quickly find it with that search because they're all connected. Not all systems do that. And then the other thing about mislabeled, I just say the beauty of a solution that has the flexibility to kind of make sure that you put the guardrails up. As somebody's filling out a form, if something's incorrect or certainly incomplete, it's not going to let you submit that form. So that mislabeling goes away, right? The accuracy instantly improves, which that alone, the accuracy, especially when you start to think about your customer audits, internal audits, or your regulations, that's a massive, massive, I'd call it a heartache remover, Tracy, because you don't have
Absolutely.
that nagging thought like, oh, is the audit going to turn up something maybe that I forgot or missed, or maybe you had a new employee. Well, that new employee isn't going to be able to submit that record until it's filled out properly. So a lot of the technology will take care of this. So, okay. I had another question, Tracy, a little bit more about data integrity. These are great questions. Can you talk, this person says, Lisa says, can you help us understand what that means? Sort of when you mean data integrity, what's that?
So when we talk about data integrity, that means that the data being collected is reliable and is stored in a way that we can have an audit trail if it changes. And also ensuring that we're collecting the data consistently and reporting on it consistently. So an example of this would be if I'm on the floor collecting information on a paper form and I'm filling it out, and it looks like I put 2.9 on in a field, and it was actually 2.7, and now the person that I handed the form off to validates it because it looks okay, and then the next person goes and takes it and enters it into an Excel spreadsheet to create these reports, and now the business is making decisions on incorrect information. Being able to electronically collect data, setting parameters, removing that legibility out of it, using drop-down selections or multi-selects within data collection, and validation on all of the fields as we collect the data, and then electronically submitting it and it becoming an electronic record then allows that data to then, we know that we trust it because it's had that data validation done on it, and we know it doesn't eliminate some of the human error. There's human error in everything. We're never going to completely eliminate it. There's always that human factor, but it does allow us to trust a lot of the data that is being collected, and there's less touch points on it. And then from there, the reporting that is dynamically driven off of those reports is consistent. And so the business can make better business decisions because we can trust that the information that it's driven off of has been validated and collected correctly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you're talking about, that human error, really does happen when you're going system to system and you're hand keying, right? So if you're taking form data, well, you're creating data from a paper form, I should say it that way. That process, when you're taking that form, a piece of paper, and you're transcribing it in hand keying it into a Excel document, which is usually the way, right, Tracy? That's where integrity really falters. That's where people start to say, and people, I say in general, I'll call it your financial office, the controller. These people understand the systems, and when people start touching data with their hands, that's where integrity goes down. And I would even add one last sort of nuance to that, Tracy, which is, the ability to do the sign-off procedure digitally as well. Generally speaking, in a day, right, things are going to be running well. You're not going to have to check too much or check up on people's work. However, if something does kind of, a little yellow flag does pop up, you're then able to do a very simple procedure of signing off, right? A supervisor needs to take a look at that. Oh, wait, let me see, make sure what that looks like. So you've actually got that sort of double stop layer to say, hey, the integrity is really there. And we also had an intervention on some cases of that data. So that's another just nuance I wanted to surface.
One of the other things that I want to add to it is standardization for data collection. This is more targeted towards people that are wanting to compare across production lines or across processing plants. When there's a lot of opinion and perception built into when we're trying to compare plant A to plant B, but this is a Gala apple and this is a Granny Smith apple, but we're just calling them apples when we shouldn't be just calling them apples. They are different. And so when we take that step further, when we standardize and rule across the company and areas where we can do cross comparisons and provide that standardization, we can then provide better reporting, and we eliminate that human decision of, yeah, they're almost the same. But once you've done the standardization during that digital transformation, then you can eliminate that. Now it allows you to see more accurate analysis when comparing A to B.
Yep. No, that's a really great point too. And sometimes the processes themselves are a little bit differently. What we've found is a way to surface healthy competition sometimes between lines, but often between facilities. There's definitely a locality, let's call it pride, and rightfully so. You want to be the best plant, and being able to standardize across the plants is critical to being able to, you said it was a gala, and to compare apples to apples, we'll say that. So, okay, so we got another one. What do you typically find when going from handwriting to electronic entry? Are individuals able to electronically input data as fast as handwritten, or doing a check mark on paper forms, right? So that's a great question. Like, hey, can the solution slow the process down?
So I think you need to look at the bigger picture. So one of the things that I tell all of my clients, or anybody who asks my opinion on this, is digital transformation is a project upon itself, regardless of the solution. When you're going from paper to electronic, at no point does it ever make sense to just take what it says on paper and just copy paste it to electronic. There's a whole process around normalizing data collection. How do we, and working at it backwards, like how do we want to report on it? And so from the standpoint of the end user on the floor opening an electronic form and pressing buttons versus a clipboard with a spreadsheet that they tick boxes, there could be a little bit more requirement out of it. As far as effort is concerned, what we can do is we can reduce the decision making. So a lot of times what we can fit on a piece of paper, we are limited to what we can fit on that piece of paper. And we try to use that piece of paper in many different ways so that we don't have to send out more pieces of paper. And so let's take baking, for example. If I was out on the floor and I had to check on my cakes, and if it's a chocolate cake, I have to be, I don't know, 4 inches thick. But if I'm a vanilla cake, I need to be 5 inches thick. If we do it electronically, we don't allow the end user to have to decide whether it's chocolate or vanilla, because we can dictate that through the electronic form, so that we eliminate the human error in that factor, and increase the data integrity of the data that we're collecting. But it may take a little more time for him to, a split second more, to press the button or the toggle than it may just check on filling out a spreadsheet. And on the flip side of that, let me note, digitally collecting information allows you to ensure that the check was being done when you needed it to be done, not when I wrote and time-stamped it with my handwritten, oh, I completed this at 8:03 a.m. and not at, and when I forgot to fill it out, and now it's 11 a.m. and I have to hand it to my supervisor, but I forgot. So I'm going to quickly just check it all off and sign it off. Now there's no data integrity. It's garbage in, garbage out. We've now collected bad data.
That's a great point. The system timestamps all these records. There's no way to manipulate that, okay? Except on the back end, you'd have to call into our engineers, and they're not really interested. They want to do cool stuff. They don't want to go fix back end records. So, and that's a really fair point, though. And one last, I think, piece to that is this issue called UX/UI design, right? Well, let's take your cake example, Tracy. And you don't want just the vanilla cake and the chocolate cake. You're going to actually add a raspberry cake into the mix. Now you have to figure out how to squeeze in that extra checkbox on that piece of paper. What usually happens? What font size are you looking at now, right? Is your operator even able to read that clearly with a holistically designed system that's mobile compatible, that's really easy on your eyeballs? We do compatibility checks with, actual accessibility checks rather, to make sure people, even with, we go down and we think about, hey, is there anyone that might have color blindness? What are the colors we're using on these screens? Let's make sure everyone understands it so that it is very perfectly clear, right? And generally speaking, a checkbox, taking a piece of paper and a pencil and taking a check is about the same time when you boil it down as pushing your thumb on a touchscreen device and checking that box electronically. So
And look
that
at
was
the
a really
extra
good
value
chat.
that you
Thanks for
have,
that.
right? Like being able to collect that information, the extra value that you have, you can attach lab results directly to a form as an attachment. You can take a picture and attach it so that I've been in production facilities where they tape product to the inspection sheet, and now you have these pieces of paper with taped product. And now do you file that way? Do you let it rot in the filing cabinet? Do you remove it? Like, what do you do with it? Now collecting it electronically, now you have this record because you have these pictures that you can prove the non-compliance in the check or the compliance in the check.
Yeah. Great point. So Wendy, thanks for that question. That was a great one. I got a couple more coming in. Michael just has a nice thought. I just wanted to surface this. He says, my experience, data entry can start off slower, but the data is so much better. You're still saving time in the overall. Exactly about redesign process. You don't just make electronic paper. So he's following up with your consult there, Tracy, which is don't just take what you're doing and do it. Yeah. You, Michael. So he's seconding that, and I think that's a brilliant point that you made. So I appreciate that. One last one on the value-added activity. I think somebody's in budgetary mode right now, Tracy. Some of the questions I'm seeing. So Lisa says, how do we surface this in budgetary discussions? How do you pose? And so I'm going to try and spell this out a little bit more. It was a little bit broken in the words, but how do you show that to your management? How do you discuss that? How do you show that? How do you propose, hey, there's these value-added activities? What's a good way to sort of propose that into management?
So the value-added activities is usually something that is like the bonus out of all of it. So if you get to free up, so I'm big on, I don't want to eliminate people. I want to have them do better work or do work that is more meaningful to the company that can drive all of those other areas, increase profitability and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the areas that I found is training. A lot of the people there, nobody has time to do training or doing quality research or anything like that. That's where a lot of these value-added potential activities can be driven off of, as well as following up on things or root cause analysis. Now we're giving you this fantastic data set of information that's standardized, and now you want to see that we have non-compliances always on a pre-op check on line 1. Well, why do we have that, and what is the non-compliance? Well, we realize that the fan turns on right before I go and do the check. And so, oh, well, now we can go and fix the fan so that it doesn't turn on. So then now we don't have the non-compliances. So that root cause analysis, having someone be able to take that data and interpret it into actionable items is definitely an area where you're reallocating your resources and becomes a value-added activity.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I would add to that one thing. I think, if you are looking for a QMS system and you are convinced, hey, this is going to help you, and you want to show that value-added activity and really just sort of vision cast, if you will, I would point you to some of the complexity, the increasing complexity of regulation. Okay, this it's not getting less. Never has, never will. Okay, I'll point to just one: the new era of food safety, the FDA. Right, there's a roadmap in front of us that we have to get after. How do we do that if with the same people? Right. So I like your point, Tracy. I'm 100% with you. It's not about eliminating people. It's about reassigning work and making it smarter, whether that's yield or training. But if you even pose the fact that says, how are we going to start working on, let's call it the culture, the food safety culture side, right, in this new era? How do you even start that? Well, you have to allocate somebody the time to start thinking about it and producing papers to discuss and to actually put initiatives forth. That doesn't happen unless you can save some time, right? Or hire somebody to do it. And now what are you doing with your profitability? So it's all obviously intertwined, but that's another way to pose this in a discussion, which is, hey, food safety isn't getting less complex, it's getting more. We will need more oversight. The digital path will get us to where we need to, just not just now, but further down the road as complexity increases, and we'll be able to tackle some of the other things that we should be getting after. So.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to take a look one last time. That looks like we are out of questions and almost out of time. So I think we did pretty good on both of these, Tracy. I appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. I've always learned something whenever I'm in the same room with you, even if it is just this virtual room. So again, thanks for joining us on Beyond Compliance, and wanted to thank everyone else for joining us, and look for the follow-up emails with some information, including the resource, the source for that information that I forgot to put in there. So I'll get that on there. Thanks again, Tracy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right, that concludes Beyond Compliance for sort of October 2020. Cheers.